Hi, welcome to Middle Grade Adventures, where at the Kingston Library, we share previews every month of some of our favorite new middle grade novels. In this edition, we're going to be looking at Willodeen by Katherine Applegate. This book is about the delicate balance of nature and what happens when that balance is disrupted. Chapter 6. The annual arrival of the hummingbirds was our village's claim to fame. They migrated from the north in huge flocks, confusing the skies and crowding the clouds before landing on the blue willows in our valley. There they stayed until spring, when they flew back to their other home, an island hundreds of miles to the north. It was breathtaking seeing those animals clustered on the trees, their shimmering wings all fluttery. Why they'd chosen Perchance, no one was sure. It seemed to have something to do with the gentle winter climate and our strands of blue willows, the only trees where they'd nest. Perchance was tucked in a valley surrounded by wooden hills, like a baby in a green cradle. The river Essex ran through town, honey slow. Our blue willows loved the river. They craved water, clutching the banks with their knotty fingered roots, and the hummingbirds loved the willows. It wasn't just their sweet faces and lovely cooing that made the hummingbirds so irresistible. It was also their nests, made of glistening bubbles that absorbed sunlight and glowed all night, as if hundreds of miniature rainbows had gathered for a party. No one knew quite how the hummingbirds worked their nesting wizardry. They chewed willow leaves, somehow extracted the sap, then blew tough-walled bubbles. The bubbles adhered to each other and to the branches of the willows with surprising strength. Most years, the village held an autumn fair to celebrate the arrival of the hummingbirds, and visitors came from near and far. When I was 7, we'd had to call it off after a mudslide north of the village center. And when I was 9, smoke from a fire 2 ridges over had kept most visitors away. But even without those problems, we'd all noticed that fewer hummingbirds were migrating to the village. Each autumn, the willows still turned silvery blue, the air still got crisp apple feel to it, and we still prepared for an onslaught of visitors. But something had changed. It was worrisome, to say the least. Perchance depended on money from the tourists, inns brimmed to overflowing with customers who bought food and ale and trinkets. A boy named Connor Burke made hummingbirds out of willow and bark and sold them as souvenirs. May sold her thick knitted shawls. Nedwit Pole, the baker, created hummingbird-shaped pastries filled with berry jam. The rest of the year, we made ends meet. We tended our garden plots. Some of us worked at the lumber mill. We fished in the river and hunted in the forest. A handful of men had jobs building tracks for the steam railway that skirted the village. But the hummingbirds and the autumn fair, that's what had always kept us afloat through the lean months. Mostly I avoided the fair, with its teeming crowds that made me feel like I was being smothered. So much noise, so much forced merrymaking. Often I would see children there, ones I recognized from my rare visits to school. They moved in packs like wild dogs. After they passed, I could hear them howling with laughter. I wondered sometimes what it would be like to have a friend, to be so comfortable with myself that I could be comfortable with someone else too. But I was happy enough. I didn't need the complications and confusion that might come with friendship. Usually I could stand only a few minutes of the fair before retreating to someplace quiet and safe. I loved seeing hummingbirds, of course, but it was the screechers that mattered most to me and worried me more. While we were seeing fewer and fewer hummingbirds each fall, by the time I was nearly 11, the screechers had all but disappeared. I seemed to be one of the few people who noticed, and I was quite sure I was the only one who cared. So in this book, Willodeen, the 11-year-old character who was just speaking, is determined to find out what is happening to the screechers, and during the process, she learns that maybe, just maybe, the problem with the hummingbirds has to also do with the screechers. If you enjoyed this book, it is available here at the Kingston Library. to check out. And if you enjoyed this middle grade adventure, please subscribe to our channel and check out every month for a new preview of a new book. Thanks a lot.